Now that you're here, we can get this party started. This is Passion and Pursuit, a podcast with heart where you are the main inspiration. If you have a life, if you have a business, if you believe in love and everything in between that this beautiful life has to offer, you are in the right place at the right time. I'm your friend and number one cheerleader, Priya Devalia, who also happens to be the creator and host of Passion and Pursuit, a podcast with heart, and we are living, okay, maybe a little obsessed, to encourage you, inspire you, and ignite your limitless potential. Let's get into it. Hi, welcome, Kidan. It's so amazing to have you here. How are you today, first of all?
I'm doing great. I couldn't wait to meet you and talk to you about resilience.
You look amazing today. You're glowing.
Thank you.
I want to commend you for some things, first of all. There's some things that I noticed in the way that you conducted yourself throughout this whole Passion and Pursuit podcast. And I want to open with a little quote. And I lifted this quote right out of your book. The quote is not by you, it's by Oprah. And I love quotes, and I love this quote. And it says, "Vulnerability is telling the truth so others can see themselves through you." And Kidan, I want to commend you for taking such fast action in saying yes to be the very first guest on Passion and Pursuit. And I love this quote also because it's so much of my personal values as a person. I really, really value vulnerability because I believe that it's through vulnerability that we can begin to start making a real difference. And I don't think impacts can be created by hiding and pretending. So in a way, I'm really blessed and fortunate to have the honor of having you as my inaugural guest here on Passion and Pursuit podcast. And because you are setting the tone for every single guest that is yet to come on this show. And in many ways, it exemplifies your leadership because a leader will always go first. And vulnerability is powerful. It gives people freedom to be themselves. It can bring them towards comfort, to know that they're not alone. It can give them courage to keep going and also feel the acceptance of being loved as you are at whatever stage you are in your journey. So Kidan, you are a real leader. And I want to say that up front. And throughout this podcast, I know that your willingness to be open, honest, and vulnerable is going to allow so many that come after you to let their own hair down, undo their belts and corsets, and throw off their restraints. Kidan, thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome, Priya.
Well, I love it. Please tell the people, first off, right off the bat, how do you and I know each other?
Priya and I met when I first stepped into this country.
Wow.
Me and my 3 children and my husband, that was 24 years ago.
We've known each other that long? Wow,
Yes.
That's incredible.
It is.
That you are from one of the most extraordinary and misunderstood countries on earth. Tell me about your home country. Where is it? And what does it mean to you?
My home country was South Sudan. I say this because it became South Sudan in 2011. We had gone through a lot. I would say that we are loving people. We are people of faith and people who like to look ahead regardless of what they're facing. I love my country. I spent my first 20 years in South Sudan. Every time I go back to visit, within 2 weeks, my skin starts to glow.
Wow.
And that's the beauty of South Sudan. I miss it so much.
Why does it glow? Give us some beauty inside secrets.
Okay, it glows because you don't have sodas, fries. You eat fresh food from the garden. In the neighborhood, we have everybody around. We have a pastor, a teacher, a nurse. So you don't need a hospital. Everything is within. Just the care, how people take care of each other is very, very humbling to me.
You mentioned that a lot, that your community is known for its generosity and its hardworking nature and its value for family. I love that. It echoes a lot of my community as well. So, Kidan, I'm just going to ask you these four questions just to lighten the mood and have some fun. What is Juba?
Juba is the capital city of South Sudan.
And what is Kisra?
Kisra is a flatbread that we eat. It's almost like injera, but it's lighter.
You'll have to tell people what injera is.
Injera is fermented flour that is made like roti.
What is karkade?
Kerkede?
Yes.
Okay. Kerkede is hibiscus.
Skin glows when you go home.
Yes, that's one of it.
Yeah, I heard hibiscus tea is very beautifying. A last one. What is kuku?
It's very interesting because in Swahili, kuku is actually a chicken, but kuku is my ethnic group in South Sudan, and it's at the border of Uganda and South Sudan.
That's true. In a language from my home country in Nyanja, chicken is nkuku. Nkuku. That's how we say it. Yeah,
Okay.
that's right.
Yeah, it's close.
Please, can you teach us a useful phrase? We got to learn some kuku. How about something like, hello, how are you?
Okay. Bongda donabut.
Bongda donabut.
Good.
Is my pronunciation good?
Yes.
You're totally lying, but I love you for it. First of all, I want to start with the meaning of your name. What does Kidan mean?
Kiden means middle.
Are you the middle child?
I'm the firstborn. That's why I have to explain like this. Yeah.
How many children were you?
We were 9 children.
Oh
I
my
was
goodness.
the first of 9, 6 girls and 2 boys.
My brother has 5 kids, and the oldest child, she's always very proud of her elder child status. How about you?
My parents were proud of me, and they actually gave me a lot of challenges because they believed that if I could succeed, everybody else would. So there was pressure in that sense, but also respect for me. Even up to now, my siblings, they see me like their mother.
That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But I can definitely see how there could be a lot of pressure because you're setting the precedent for all of the other kids, just like you're setting the precedent for all my other guests. They're going to have to measure up to you. I'm just kidding. Everyone is unique. I love everyone equally.
I like the last sentence you said. Everyone is
Oh, we're going to get in. You know, I'm so nervous. I find myself stumbling over my words, but I love it because vulnerability, we just need to be ourselves, you know?
Yes, let's be ourselves.
Exactly. I love it. So tell me about tiny Kiden. What was it like being a little girl growing up in Sudan, then Sudan? And tell me more about your family of origin. I really want people to get a little taste of the very first years of your life that helped shape you to become the woman that you are today.
Yeah, my early years were filled with advocacy. I was advocating for myself from age 8.
Even then.
Even then, I was already expressive. So that's one of them where I would always want to talk, but I wasn't allowed to talk.
Why is that?
And I pushed myself through, but I would always be sent away, as I think I said in the book, that I was just told to go inside because I had said something to the elders. So I gained a lot of support and way of life through others because I started to walk to school and talking to the neighbors' kids and saying, okay, let's walk. That's how I talk. When I get out of the house, I'm talking. And when I was 10, I was debating in class. As life goes, the responsibilities in the house were really intense. Even when my mother is sick, I have to still go to school and take care of my mother. And then it's not long after that, I met Gire's dad. I was 13. I didn't really meet him. He was just running after me.
He was chasing you.
He was chasing me. I didn't meet him.
Maybe it's all of that glowing skin and hibiscus tea.
That's probably what attracted him to me. And I was like, no, I'm in school. Leave me alone. So he persisted. At age 15, my dad died of car accident. He was a very responsible man. I used to love him so much. So I think that kind of tip up my scale quite a bit. Because again, responsibilities, right? Yet I couldn't take his role. And that's why I put in the book that his shoes cannot be filled. Then at 20, I gave in to Doko.
You gave it. Okay.
I gave in.
I see. Was it an arranged marriage? By the way, Duku is your ex-husband, correct?
Yes.
Right. Just so that the audience knows who we're talking about.
No, it was not arranged. My parents actually want me to continue with school. However long I'm going to take, like at least a decent education level. They really have high standards for me. But it was interesting story about my marriage. Vulnerability. I'm going to be very vulnerable here and say it.
Please do.
Premarital sex were not allowed and sex was not talked about.
Right.
But I did have sex with him. So that means I need to marry him.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, it was not enforced, but indirectly, you just have this subconscious. You don't feel good about it.
Right. It was sort of like a cultural expectation.
Yes, it was a cultural expectation. So I just gave in like that. I went for a weekend party and 2 days later, the next day I'm married. Like, right. I'm married.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in many, many cultures, it's the same thing. And in so many cultures, and even in Chechnya and many cultures, like Azerbaijan, if you spend one night with the man, you are married. That's it.
Exactly. And that's how I married him, yes.
How did you feel, though? Was that a shock? Just as a young woman, you kind of realized the implications of one action like that?
Yeah, I felt like you are guilty when you do it. You are guilty when you don't.
Why do you say guilty when you don't?
If I don't marry him, I would still feel guilty because I will always feel about it. It will always be in my mind.
Oh, I see.
Yet, if I did it, it was still not something that I really wanted to do.
So you did something you didn't really want to do?
No.
I just want to jump back a little bit because you are a 15-year-old girl and you lose your father tragically. He dies in a car accident.
Yes.
You touch on this story in the book at some point, and I just want to touch on it because in these past 3 years, 2 years, COVID has introduced a lot of people to the concept of grief. There's literally no one that hasn't experienced grief or doesn't know somebody who has experienced grief. And you say something really interesting in your book, and I just want to touch on it briefly. You said, yes, it's devastating, but we have to find healthier ways to grieve. Can you tell me a little bit more about, the idea of you're 15, you're devastated, but now you grow up a little bit and in terms of age and experience. And the devastation is still there. It's still real. But there's something inside of you that says there are healthier ways to grieve. What did you mean by that?
Okay, thank you for bringing that point up. Yes, there are healthier ways to grieve. And what I meant by that is I come from a culture where we value each other. And we always want each other. We always want to be together, always. But if something like that happened, we're broken. And because we are broken, we want to break ourselves. Because we are broken, we are angry that God has abandoned us. So what is the point in life? There are so many points for us to live. If I didn't live, I wouldn't have the time to talk to you today. I wouldn't be there. So I meant that we need to grieve, yes, but we also need to think about other people around us, our own health, and understanding what it really means to even grieve. Does it mean you have to break down completely? Or does it mean I can cry today, but tomorrow I can smile for other things that is good about the person who I lost?
Thank you so much for, really unpacking that. I love what you said about things that break us don't actually have to break us. I think that's really powerful and ties directly into your whole story about resilience, is that you can feel broken and you can go through things that will break you, but that breaking doesn't have to be permanent.
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you so much. So let's jump ahead a little bit. You're married now and you're in high school still.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What does that feel like? Like, how did your friends treat you, your teachers?
It was odd, because the boys, especially, they like to really pull your strings. And back then, we don't have adult school. I was supposed to be in adult school, but we didn't have adult school. So we have to be with my age mates, and they all know I'm married, So I was not comfortable, but it was at the end of grade 12. So at least it was not too long. And then I was also pregnant. The pregnancy was starting that time too for
Oh
my
my
daughter.
goodness, you were
Yes.
pregnant in high school as well.
Mm-hmm.
So life had progressed really fast for you at that point.
Yes, very
Mm.
fast.
So then you're pregnant and the time comes to have the baby. Something terrible happens 2 hours after you give birth to that child. What's going on around you in Juba town?
Well, that morning when I gave birth to my first daughter, as you said, 2 hours after that, bombs were dropped.
Bombs were dropping 2 hours
Yes,
after you gave birth.
yes.
That's extraordinary.
I panicked. I saw people running, animals like dogs, cats, chickens were running. I didn't know what to do, but my mom was around, and I gave birth at home with traditional birth attendant.
Okay, so
So
like a midwife.
yeah, like a midwife. That's right. So my mom carried the baby in a blanket, and we ran. We hid in the bushes on our bellies for hours. Duko, the father of my children, said, "No, we cannot live here. We need to leave this country." So we left in 2 months, and I was 20 years old.
What was happening in your country that made you flee, though?
Civil war.
And what precipitated the civil war?
Oh, the civil war was started because of inequality in wealth and education, um, inequality, discrimination based on religion, because South Sudan was really split. The South is mostly Christians, the North is Muslims.
Honestly, I don't know anything about Sudan. I remember when I was little, as you know, I'm from Zambia. I'm an African too. But I always thought Sudan was just like a desert. That's how I imagined it. But
Yeah.
it's actually a beautiful country with incredible wildlife, mountains,
Yep.
lush greenery. And I had no idea until I started researching it for this podcast. But you have this beautiful country that is torn apart by these two opposing forces. In between you having the baby and your husband saying, we have to run for our lives. What was the experience of war really like when you were still in that country between that transition period?
The experience of war is of uncertainty, it's of fear. We got to a point of hopelessness. There was no food in the market. We were starving.
And so your husband puts all of you on a plane and you go to the nation of Uganda.
Yeah, the unknown. We had to face the unknowns.
And what was your experience like in the first few months of being in Uganda?
My experience was that life can throw you off. You have to struggle. Whatever you're going to grab with your hands, you grab. Whatever you can run for, you run. It's just survival.
Did you feel that you had any skills? Did you have
No.
what did you have?
What I had was, ever since I was young, I was just a people person. So I was a happy person. I want to say hi to everyone almost. Then my mom, if I'm working with my mom, she'll be like, we're not going to get where we want to go if you keep saying hi to people like that. I think that helped me to connect with people and get to know the language. That was the first thing I needed to know.
What were the events that caused your move from Uganda to one of the largest refugee camps in the world in Kenya?
We couldn't get employment. We couldn't sell. If you want to sell, it's still against the law. You are littering the city, so you get chased around. The first time I went to Uganda, I landed in a coffee plantation, and that was the worst place I've ever lived. People work around the clock, but they can hardly buy slippers or soap to wash their body. I'm like, what are you working for? And I'm like, should I even ask this question?
Yeah.
So we went to that situation, and my daughter was 6 months old. She was growing there in that. A lot of superstition, a lot of jealousy. I looked good, but I didn't have money. I was just healthy person. My body was healthy, and Gire was healthy, but they don't want to see us like that.
By the way, everyone, Gire is Kidan's oldest child, her daughter. So it was a very unstable environment, it sounds like.
Very unstable. We had nowhere to sell anything. And he tells me, I'm going to the refugee camp. When are you going? In a week. What? We haven't discussed how I am going to live with these little kids, 2 kids. I had Mike in Uganda, in Kampala.
Oh, what was it about a refugee camp that made him think it was a good idea? Because I actually want to also talk about a refugee camp, because you know what, for people like us, like me personally, refugee camps are just like a thing we say. And today I really want you to give us an insider's look about what's really going on there, because these are real people. These are real human beings. This is like a real situation. And it's so easy to make a cartoon out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's real life. Yes, it's real life. It's not a fantasy. It's not movie. No. Yeah, I think what made him go to the refugee camp was desperation. He was very insecure. We have no job, no business. Life, I can't be here anymore. There was news coming in that American embassy is coming to the refugee camp to get refugees to go to America.
Right. To him, it represented some kind of small glimmer of hope, maybe some kind of opportunity.
Very much so.
This is one of the largest refugee camps in the world, and you're in it. And there's no electricity, no running water. When you walk into that camp, when you set foot into that camp, what do you see? What's your first impression?
The environment was kind of really dry, like thorny trees, dusty storms. And I'm like, where am I going? Trees, nothing green. So it's a desert. Hardly see people unless there's somebody on a camel.
How do you find a place to stay in the refugee camp?
You have to construct your own place.
What?
They give you a tent.
Oh, okay.
And when you're given, it's written United Nations on it. and you use that tent in any way you want to make a place for yourself.
Do people get super creative?
You have to, or you'll sleep outside like bare space.
Oh my goodness. So you're here with like a baby. And by the way, was your second son born in Uganda?
Yes, she was born in Kampala.
You start teaching.
I started teaching primary school, ages ranging from 5 to 10. But
Mhm.
I was very happy though for the job I had. It was also something like serving people, making a difference.
Mhm. Exactly. You really love people. You've been connecting with people now since you left your home country. You start advocating for girls' education. What made you start advocating for these girls in the refugee camp?
They drop out of school. As soon as they see their period, they get married. And then they hardly continue with school.
I see. So when they reach the age of sexual maturity, the family or the culture says, it's time for you to become a wife and a mother. Forget learning.
Exactly.
I'm trying to figure out how it is you think differently from so many of the cultural and traditional beliefs around you. Like, what's going on in your brain that you're in a refugee camp, one of the largest refugee camps in East Africa and the world.
Yeah.
And here you are fighting for the rights of young girls.
I saw myself in those girls. My family was very loving and good family. They were conservatives that you have to be perfect because your grandfather is a pastor.
I
So don't do
see.
wrong things, whatever. So for me, it was limiting.
You had to be the example and the standard, but it's a lot to put on a young child's shoulders.
Some things, and also the fact that I have to care for my family and my mother and go to school at the same time. This is exactly what these girls were doing.
Did you get any opposition or blowback, or did you cause any controversies with the other cultural beliefs around you at that time?
I did.
So how did you stand up?
But one day when I was walking to school to teach, I was stoned. Someone threw a stone on me.
You were stoned.
And then I see a stone flying and hitting my head, my cheek.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I was hit in my cheek. So there's always that resistance.
And then that led you to start advocating on a larger scale now. You suddenly became a spokesperson and a chairwoman between the people and social services.
Yes.
Tell me more about that. That's very exciting.
I'm getting goosebumps when I talk about it. Actually, social services was responded positively because they have to also let United Nations know, because United Nations and social services, they work together and they find that these issues are real and they need to be addressed. So yes, they got funding and they were happy. And some people are like, oh, what's wrong with Duku's wife? She thinks that she knows everything.
You were getting shade. You were getting
Yeah.
shade from everybody. You know, Kidan, you've really gone through a bit of an evolution as a person already.
I have known that. I've known that I have abilities to express myself. I also felt like there has been a lot of injustice in my life that I don't tolerate.
Injustice like what? But let's not talk about the injustices that we're going to talk about. Let's talk about what you've experienced so far.
Oh, yeah. Okay. What I've
Because
experienced.
we got to keep it juicy. We got to keep some anticipation and suspense.
I like that. I love it. Okay. So I had a lot of, I think it's, as I said, resilience. When I was young, I learned to solve problems. I learned to believe in myself. I learned to value responsibilities.
It's very interesting to me because I would have thought going through war, going through displacement, becoming a refugee would literally break somebody. Why didn't it break you?
It didn't break me because I'm unbreakable.
Well, that's true.
That's the short part. The other part is, I think I sometimes feel like I'm not really in the moment, but I have been in the moment most of my life. And the reason I say that is because I don't look too far from where I am. If I would say, okay, what do I need? I'm thirsty, so I need water. I drink. Then I put that down. Then I move. That's how I do it. I've been very consistent in what I do, regardless of the big things that happen around me.
I think staying in the moment is something that a lot of people are struggling with, especially because we're in such an environment where there's so much anxiety. So we're always
Yeah,
thinking about the next thing, or
right.
we've gone through so much that we're in pain from the past.
Yeah,
Staying in the moment is something that you're saying has helped you remain strong.
it has ground me and anchor me and say it doesn't matter what's happening in the next hour. Sometimes it's just minute by minute.
Expand a little bit more on your definition of staying in the moment. I really want people to get this.
I go to South Sudan to visit. I was not in the moment at that time, but I was reminded to be. We don't have fridge in the house. There's no electricity in Juba.
Well, there's no better way to stay in the moment than no fridge.
That's a good one. We were going to bed. I asked my Mom, what are we having for breakfast tomorrow? And she says, go to bed. We'll get to see that tomorrow when we wake up. So I'm like, okay, this is Canadian mentality now where everything is set up and you have the fridge inside. But for Mom, it's a different thing. But then she brought my mind back to thinking about living in the moment.
It's 1999. You set foot on Canadian soil. I was really, really touched by a scene from your book. You're in the subway, I think it was York Mill Station, and you meet a young South Sudanese man. You asked him two questions. You said, have you eaten? What is your living situation like? And I thought those two questions were so significant because they can really describe the immigrant, new Canadian experience.
Meeting him reminds me of my first time in Canada. You want to see somebody who looks like you, somebody
Right.
who speaks your language, who you can connect with at a deeper level. So that's how I saw him. And also the fact that he's a refugee claimant, I don't know what their situation is, how he lives. So that's why I'm also saying that I'm somebody who lives in the moment, but also a simple person, practical person.
Right.
Yeah, I just want the simple things, for him. And those things I can be able to help with. I cannot get him a house, but I can help with a meal, right?
That's beautiful. And I think it captured me because only a person who had gone through something could know to ask those questions.
Mm,
And it just really touched me that, those questions don't even occur to most people because they've never been in that position. And I also love what you said about it's really important to find people that you connect with,
yeah.
that you identify with, that you understand on a deeper level. And I
Mhm.
think what's significant about that, I'd like to point out for listeners, is that not many people have fled a war-torn country. Not many people have been refugees. And so I think that's what really binds your community together is this very unique experience.
And that is true. And you remind me also of how I found strength in the refugee camp because we all had the same goal in mind. We were very faithful. We prayed every night, sometimes overnight prayer. So we really had each other. And that is very rich.
Money can't buy that
No.
togetherness. Now you're in Canada and you decide to study nursing. So you tell a story in the book, which also really made me kind of laugh.
Bring it
You tell
up.
you tell a story in the book of how you're in class and the teacher puts together a group project. These students are working with you. One of them says to you, "Your English is pretty good. Where did you learn it?" And your response is, "At the airport." I laughed out loud.
Well, I think that's my first coping mechanism in Canada with these questions that are triggering questions to me. or questions that I'm not comfortable with.
Right.
Or people already know, but they don't know how to ask it. I don't know. So they don't make me comfortable. And I get into sarcasm.
I see.
So I try to joke and just turn things around to them, in a way.
I think that's a great mechanism just to bring in some humor. You're not retaliating, but you're letting them know, hey, at nursing school, there were a couple of people that were quite hostile towards you. There are some young people who experience this kind of exclusion, judgment, and rejection, and tell them, how can they overcome this kind of treatment? And what advice would you give to people going through something similar?
Don't always expect that criticism, because if you're expecting, you're going to get it. So just go out there like any other person with your head high up and walk around. Everybody will have that respect for you.
Right. It's like, instead of walking around with a chip on your shoulder, you get to decide who you want to be and how you show up and how you carry yourself. And you take responsibility for you, and how other people react to you is their problem, not really yours.
Yes.
I like that. Kidan, let's get into some nitty gritties. One Christmas, something happens at a party that is really bad, and it is a pivotal event in your life. And it's been building like a pressure cooker over many, many years. But this one event pops the lid off. When
I came to Canada, things changed in our relationship and got worse with my relationship with Duko, who is my ex-husband.
Okay.
I have forgiven him, by the way. Right now, when I'm talking about him, it's just a matter of referencing. And then he choked me when he got to the party.
He choked you?
He choked me. I just saw his one hand on the back of my neck, the other one underneath, and he squeezed my neck.
Could you breathe?
No. I said, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. Oh, excuse me. I can't breathe. Please let go. And he couldn't. So I bit his thumb and then he released.
That's scary.
Yeah, it was. And then this many people around could still not save me.
Nobody stepped in to do anything?
No, nobody did anything.
This was in front of your children as well?
Yes. And I called police.
Did you call the police because you were genuinely scared for your life at this point?
Yes. Because I'm at home and he's coming, right? He's going to come to the house. So I don't know what's going to happen.
So you thought he might come back and do something worse.
Right.
You eventually end up in a shelter.
Yes.
So you leave your kids at home or you take them with you?
I took them with me because I didn't know. But what happened is, if the lease is under your husband, then you have to leave.
So you say this interesting line in your book where you get to the shelter and a little girl comes running up to you and says, "Your hair is messy."
Yeah.
And your reply to her is, "My life is a mess."
Right.
And I really think that exemplifies the state of mind that you were in when you entered the shelter.
Yes.
And most of us will never end up in a shelter. I think that time in a shelter was a pivotal time for you. It set you on a different trajectory.
I have to tell you, I was as afraid as the time I left South Sudan, to be honest. I was so afraid. Wow. I didn't know where I was going. And you meet in a strange place. That is a time where I have asked myself questions about me. What do I want? And how can I get it?
It's a defining moment for
you. Moment, yeah. It was a defining moment where I really get to know myself more and say, okay, this time better be the last of this running nightmare.
So I guess we could successfully describe this period as the beginning, the rise of Kidan. You start journaling in the shelter because in your book, Resilience, The Journey of Self-Discovery, what is the mechanism of writing that helped you so much? What's the importance of finding an outlet, an expression in a person's healing journey?
because you are not talking to other people, but you are talking to a paper and you're bringing whatever is in your head into a book. So for me, that process alone is healing because I used to worry a lot, have anxiety, and not sleep well. But when I'm writing, then I write before bed and then I empty everything about the day that I don't like. I write things that are good about the day, that are very productive, and then I go to sleep.
And it's just like a catharsis. It like cleanses and empties your mind and your heart and your soul. I will tell you this, I'm a big journaler. I used to be
Okay.
better. Like I've written poetry and journals since I was a child, like a very small child, and nobody really directed me to do it. It's a very natural thing for me. Nobody ever taught it to me or showed me how to do it. It was just something I did. One thing I like to say about journaling, and tell me if you agree, but I kind of think you said it already, is that the page never judges you. That's what I wrote in one of my journals. It just receives
Beautiful.
everything that you say, everything that you want to empty onto that
Mhm.
page. But I think for you, what was most significant is you were a person who was on a journey of discovering yourself. One other thing that really captured my attention about you is you have an incredible thirst to learn. At one point, you went to 50 workshops in a 2-year span. So
Yes.
I'm not good at math, but I calculated that's like a workshop every 2 weeks for a year for 2 years.
Oh, wow. You're good at math. Yes, I did that. I did that.
It's so funny if I got that wrong and all the mathematical people listening are like, nope, she didn't get it. What was it about this learning, this drive, this fire, this motivation to learn? Have you always been that way, or was that something that started once you started to go deeper to discover more of who you were?
Yeah, learning, I call it my oxygen. I say learning is my oxygen. Um, I love learning because where I'm coming from, the Kuku community in the whole South Sudan is well known for education. We just love to educate our family, our children, whether it's life skills or technical skills or soft skills, all those kind of skills. We just have that gift. And we also find that we know that there is benefit and there is a lot of incentive when you are educated versus those who are not. So we push for that. But then me as an individual, it is I think my experiences that inspire me to move. Even when I don't have energy, I want to move. And that's what drives me.
One day, you meet this incredibly cute and charming girl called Priya
Mm-hmm.
Devalia.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. Yes. Yes.
Yo,
Talk about fear.
it's my podcast, y'all. Yeah, I could say what I want about myself. I'm just kidding. You told me about your writing, and then I referred you to the Shoe Project. I said, Kidan, you should be part of this project. It's founded by Catherine Govier.
Mm-hmm.
And I send you over there. You guys meet, I think, in a cafe and you have a little talk. And so you become this prolific writer in the Shoe Project. Tell me about your experience there, the friends you made, and what doors opened there for you to share your story on an even broader scale.
I think I like projects because my mind has a lot to share and a lot to bring out to the masses. So I like the shoe project because of the immigration thing is in my mind and women, I have 6 sisters. I learn a lot. I didn't know that I would be able to lead 11 women in a presentation about finding self, which is finding myself. It was incredible. I have really like the way I discovered myself. It just came effortlessly. I wasn't fighting it. I was just having fun with it.
You were in the moment. But it's
Right.
very interesting how you say effortlessly. I think that's beautiful when you're doing something that is so inside of your passion pocket. You're just like, this is where I need to be at the perfect time. You're at the mall one day and you run into a friend and she
Yes.
says to you, you look good. And your response is, I know my value.
You have to know your value.
Did you always know your value?
No, domestic violence is real, but it's also hidden and it's not talked about, but we feel it, we carry it in our bodies. Those values that I had just disappeared for quite a long time.
In your book, you talk about the practice of self compassion, and you say inner beauty is compassion. To practice self compassion is to learn that it is okay to fail. Most people are deathly afraid of failure, but not you. Why is that?
No, I used to be afraid of failure, but I was always afraid of failing. I always want to do too much so that maybe when I do more, it will be better.
Right.
But then I get so tired and I get angry that I did so much.
Yes.
So when there were times when I was going for the workshops, I learned about interpersonal skills. So since then, I've been undoing those kind of beliefs and those experiences that can be crippling to one's progress.
Definitely. And I think that self compassion is one of the most important things because even though you can love yourself and you can live in this privileged country, but people are extremely hard on themselves. And I think, like you said, that obsession with perfection, it really needs to be replaced by understanding that success and failure are kind of mirror images of each other. They go hand in hand. And that failure isn't like a permanent state. There will be times you fail, but you are not a failure.
Exactly.
And it kind of takes, the fangs out of failure. It becomes this monster without teeth. I love this quote, and this is an original quote, y'all, by Kiden Jonathan herself. And it says, if you are not willing to fail, we probably would not have the motivation to succeed. If you're not willing to fail, and if failure gets taken off the table altogether, most people might lose the motivation to succeed. They might lose the motivation to try. Where did you come up with that concept?
I came up with that because I used to be afraid of succeeding. When the stage performance, I would do very well. When somebody asked me what is next, you know what my answer would be? Sleep.
Oh my goodness, you sound like me. We're twins.
Yeah, people who succeed have actually failed so much. Even when I look at like experiments and people who are like doing innovations, they are not getting it one time, right?
Yes.
They are repeating and repeating and learning through the process until they get a product out. Yeah, so then I said, okay, success is possible.
To me, that's the definition of resilience. You just keep going. You keep trying.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. All these journeys that I went through, the experiences I went through. I think there are some of my nieces reading it, and they're like, "Is this a true story? It happened to Auntie?"
It is quite extraordinary, and I'm so honored and so blessed to have talked with you about it. What do you feel has been your greatest success in life?
My greatest success in life is finding my purpose.
Why do you consider that a great success?
You can go through life and do so much for so long, but sometimes you're not doing the right things or in the right order, and it doesn't take you where you really want to be.
So it's like you're not going in the right direction, but you keep just doing.
Exactly. And then the more you do, the more frustrated you get. So I'm seeing myself as someone who have come with different kind of struggles, fears, insecurities, but have been able to pull it together into something good that I can say, yes, this is my life.
And what has enabled you to pull it together and say with such acceptance and compassion that, yes, this is my life?
What helped me to pull together is people like you.
Ooh, I like that.
Yes, Priya. People like Priya.
I'm just kidding. Remember what I told you. It's not about me, Kidan. It's not about me.
I think what helped me pull together is one is learning. Second is connections with people.
Love it.
Third is being optimistic, knowing that tomorrow, if it's a bad morning, the afternoon may be good.
Your mother once said to you, you have a different path.
My mother did say that.
And she was right. Your path is so unique and so different. And what an honor to hear all of it. What do you hope your presence here on earth will leave?
I hope that my presence will be remembered as the person who fought for women, the person who was a woman, the person who lived every kind of issues you can imagine, but has overcome or did overcome.
And what are you pursuing in this next chapter of your life?
I'm already writing a second book.
Oh my goodness, multiple author. Okay.
I'll be publishing a book maybe in 1 or 2 years, and then an online program. I would be recording courses online.
I can't wait. This is amazing. You're speaking my language. This excites me. Guys, fulfill your potential. Look at Kidan as an example of that. Where can people find you online, Kidan, and where can they buy your amazing book?
Resilience, the Journey of Self-Discovery is on Amazon, and you can find me at my website. I will let you know. I'm still updating it. For now, my email, Kiden Jansuk, which is Kiden, JANSUK @gmail.com.
And don't worry, we're going to link all of that if it's okay with you so that
Sure.
people can reach you and maybe share their stories and their hearts with you. Kidan, it's been such a pleasure today. I can't even tell you. I have no words, but I do want to end off with this description of you that Gire, your daughter, wrote you a Mother's Day card.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what she said.
Okay.
And this is what I would like to end with today. She says to you, Happy Mother's Day to a woman with courage, patience, resilience, wisdom, beauty, consideration, kindness, radiance, rebellion, humor, open-mindedness, generosity, unwavering faith, strength and hard work, resourcefulness and integrity, and more importantly, a woman of her own. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to Kiden Jonathan's incredible story, Resilience, the Journey of Self-Discovery. This is Passion and Pursuit, a podcast with heart where you are the main inspiration.